I used to think that I needed everything to be perfect before I started writing my family history. Turns out, I was wrong. So let me be honest with you about what I've discovered in this process of writing my family history. Like I said, I assumed I needed everything perfect. I struggled with this idea of perfectionism. I had a very idealized vision of what it meant to write my family history and what I needed in order to get that done. So here is what I've discovered in the process of things that I just didn't need that I used to think that I needed, if that makes any sense. So the first thing was I didn't need to be certified as a professional genealogist. I had thought to myself for years that I needed to pursue either the CG or the AG in order to be considered a real genealogist and to be able to write my family history. What I discovered was all the academic writing that I had done and to prepare myself for either the CG or the AG was something that my family just didn't care about. So as I produced papers about our family and gave them to family members, they read them and I think it put them to sleep. I'm not exactly sure, but they were definitely bored by the writing. And I could tell this because when I quizzed them about, what they thought about it, they never really got back to me on it. So the papers were nice, but it wasn't nearly as exciting as the things that I told them in my own words about what I had discovered. The second thing I realized that I didn't need was to have all my family tree updated into the latest genealogy software. I started to do this and spent hours and hours and days updating all these details into RootsMagic at the time, but I'd also used Family Tree Maker in the past. And what I realized was, in talking to my family, was that no one was going to crack open this database and keep it updated in the future. That my time would be much better spent writing down everything that I had in terms of facts into stories for them to enjoy. The third thing I realized that I didn't need was every single fact on every single ancestor. I had done a ton of research, maybe you have too, and I assumed that it needed to be completely done and perfect before I could start writing and sharing these stories. And that was just wrong. I was talking with family members who didn't know really anything compared to what I had learned, and I just needed to share what I knew. That's all I needed to do, is just write down and share exactly what I've already discovered. I didn't need to go back 10 generations or more. I didn't need to get back into the 1600s in order to make my family history something that my family wanted to read. The fourth thing I discovered that I didn't need, and this is probably going to be the most controversial, is that I didn't need a citation for every single fact and put it as a footnote in my writing. I know, hold on. Citations are like, one of these things that we love to debate in the genealogy world, and how important it is to source our facts. I totally agree with that. I don't think we should be making up things to add into our family history just to make the story complete. But I chose to take the path of more of a biographer than an academic genealogist or a certified genealogist in terms of putting a footnote for every single fact. Now, just to be clear, footnotes are those things that go on the bottom of every single page of what's being written. So if you look at a page of writing, there'll be a little bit of actual text or sentences that are being read, and then underneath that, usually more than the actual writing, are footnotes. And those footnotes are honestly annoying for normal people to read. And I'm writing for normal people. I'm not writing for academics and PhDs. I'm writing for just an everyday person. So those citations of what is there for biographers go in the back as endnotes, and they go in the back as sources. So I don't need to cite, for instance, the 1930 census for each individual family member. I can just note the 1930 census in the particular locality that I used for the entire family. So that's the approach I'm taking, rather than torturing myself with these footnotes. I'm writing like a biographer, not an academic genealogist. And the fifth thing I realized is that I didn't need anyone's approval in terms of getting started. I was sitting around waiting for permission, waiting to feel good enough, waiting to have somebody say, "You know enough, go write." And that's just silly. I could have been writing for years, and I don't know why I was waiting around waiting for someone's permission. I can write whatever it is that I want to write about my family history. Some other branch of my family might disagree with it. They might want to emphasize a different relative or have it discussed in a different way, and they're free to write about it however they want it to be written about. I can write about it the way I want it to be written about. And that's the way life is. We don't all have to agree perfectly in order for something to occur. Now, you might be wondering, what did I need in terms of writing my family history? Well, let's cover that now. So here are the 5 things that I did need in terms of getting started with my family history. Number 1, I needed to start with one person in one place at one time. I was overwhelming myself trying to write the entire story of multiple generations, and it was only when I started with one person that I could finally get my family history written. The second thing I needed was an outline. I used to hate outlines. I thought they were a waste of time and not necessary. And what I discovered is when I start with an outline and get all my facts laid out, then I can easily write this family history that I want to tell. I showed in my previous videos how I use ChatGPT to help me organize that outline, so be sure to check those out. I have full tutorials on how to use ChatGPT as your assistant in building that outline, and it's the way I do it because it makes it so much easier and actually kind of fun to get it assembled so I can start writing. You can see the full tutorials on chroniclemakers.com. The link is in the description. The third thing that I realized that would help my family history writing is a focus on images as well as the facts. In this day and age, we have access to digitized maps, photographs, artwork, drawings, sketches, and of course the documents in our family tree. Adding those into the family history makes for a much richer story than just me talking about the details. If there's a saying, an image is worth 1,000 words, well, that is definitely the case when it comes to writing family history. The fourth thing I needed when it came to writing was giving myself permission to write badly. I know that sounds ridiculous. I'm encouraging myself to write poorly, to write without any sort of style or grammar, but that is exactly what I needed in order to just start writing. Once the words were on the paper, I could then improve them, make them better, maybe use AI to help with the editing to give me some ideas, but I couldn't do any of that unless I put the sentences on the paper in my own voice with the emphasis on the things that I wanted to cover. So that permission to write badly was very, very important. And then the fifth and final thing that I needed was a simple writing routine. Committing time to write each week in my calendar as if it was an appointment to go to the doctor or get my hair cut or to see a friend. I needed to treat writing the same way. It was in my calendar and it was an appointment with my ancestors to write about them. And I just showed up and sat down and started to write. So those are the 5 things that held me back. Those are the 5 things that had me move forward. So now I want to know, what's the first thing that you're going to be writing about your family history? Let me know in the comments. My name's Denise Allen with Chronicle Makers, and I'll see you in the next video.